Welcome to the Conversion Show today. I sat down with Mona Sutherland from Shop Melissa and Shop Ipanema, skyrocketing jelly sandal brand Shop Melissa you may have seen in Nordstrom, Zappos, everywhere. You know, Mona has years of experience with Adidas and other brands running paid media. You know, she focuses heavily on ROAS and conversion. So we're going to talk about what conversions mean to her, which are sales, and how she analyzes those, along with trends that she's looking forward to in the upcoming year with loyalty and secondary marketplace for their sandals. So with that said, let's roll. Cool. So love your background, very diverse in e-commerce. I love that you have like traditional foundational. Was it Adidas?
Yes.
And I feel like often with a lot of the DTC brands currently, there isn't that the art of retail, that's
Sure.
out there, and especially with the importance of customer experience and like like you mentioned the word merchandising, they probably don't know what that means. So I'm really interested to hear your take on a couple of areas, but
Amazing.
what I like to do is just kind of check in first bit here, and then our goal is to kind of aim for about 30 minutes
Okay.
of talk track time, just for people's attention spans.
Exactly.
Of course,
Not long anymore.
yeah, but once we start talking retail, it's hard to stop.
Exactly.
So as we're learning, as we're doing these shows, finding that something like there's something we can dig into that really will resonate with people, and something that stood out to me was right now, first party data, everyone's talking about it.
Sure.
What are people doing with it and how are they capturing
Sure.
it? I noticed in your lead capture, you are asking, is it men, women's, kids, or boys, girl?
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to really explore that and learn how you're leveraging that.
Okay.
Would that
Sounds
be
good.
something you can speak towards? And obviously it's what you feel comfortable. There's only, there's a million questions one can ask, but what,
No, definitely. I think that, again, just us, I would say that, Melissa, if I'm speaking specifically around Shop Melissa, so Shop Ipanema just launched. This is like it, and we didn't have a whole lot of historical data. With Shop Melissa, we relaunched. So the company I work for now is a JV between Grendene, the Brazilian manufacturer, and a private equity firm. They're really trying to commercialize in US, Canada, China, Hong Kong. And so we relaunched the site in early 2022.
How about this? Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no.
I would love to hear this story.
Okay.
So, it's like, I just want to know what are you dealing with today?
Yeah.
Because a lot of what people do, digital marketers, you're having to manage a lot. And you mentioned like the dealing with that URL, like that is a big thing that
Sure.
It's the trenches of retail.
Sure. And another thing, so my time at Adidas as well. So I lived in Panama for 17 years, and I just recently moved back to the United States in December.
How's
I'm originally from California. I'm in Miami, so it's okay. It's a very similar culture.
Yeah.
It's very Latino. Some things, there's definitely pros and cons. In Panama, domestic help is affordable. I have a young daughter, so I'm now spending a lot of my time doing household things. But for example, here, there's so many activities, Unicorn World and, Disney on Ice and whatever else. So it's a transition, but we're getting there. But when I joined Adidas, I was part of the team that launched the sites in Latin America. So at that company, a very traditionally wholesale driven legacy company, I was part of the team that really tried to ramp up this digital transformation. And so we launched the sites. 2012, 2013, I focused on paid media for those sites, paid media, SEO, until 2015. I transitioned into e-commerce marketing. I was also the first person to hold that position and basically tried to integrate digital into go-to-market. So when our category is running football, we're thinking about going to market, activating those stories. What could they do with e-com? That's kind of, I was the person in the room that would help out with that. And again, eventually that position grew, the team grew and whatnot, but that was very much all about education, evangelization within this very wholesale driven legacy company. So there's some elements of digital transformation as well there. And the
Wholesale
different
is a really interesting aspect to the website experience conversion, because you have wholesalers coming into the website and you got to direct them to that section, A, and
Sure.
B, I forget who I was talking with. I think it was Sophistiplate, how now it's on your plate now as the e-com manager to run the wholesale business.
Sure.
And that experience inside the app, with wholesale, how about if we step back real quick? Shop Melissa,
yes,
Ipanema are part. Melissa is that the driving number one brand that you're managing right now?
Currently, though, Ipanema should really come up. They're two different brands. Melissa, we've been managing for longer, so it's much more. It's been the focus. It's also Grendene's flagship brand. It's been around since 1979. It has some high-profile collaborations. We just launched one with Jean-Paul Gaultier. The team's been working hard to get the shoes on well-known people like Emma Roberts, Kylie Jenner was wearing a shoe. So Melissa's a little bit more visual, I would say. It's a little bit more in your face, whereas Ipanema should drive a massive amount of volume. It should be a big part of the business. But again, it just launched and they're flip-flops. So they're a little bit, whereas Melissa's more about fashion, art, design. Ipanema is a little bit more about fun and the beach and options from beach to brunch. So
as I think about our audience, who'd be engaged with this podcast, what stands out to me is we're talking about a e-com manager. Looking at your role, would you say e-com manage, like what would be the
right now? I would say that, like, overall what my role is, I've focused on kind of paid media and digital marketing.
Okay. So and what's unique here and what speaks to people is multi-brands, multi-site, multi-brands that you are responsible for. And one, how are you managing that? I mean, that's a lot to manage.
Absolutely.
And then two, I'm curious, is there crossover? Is what was working with one working with the other? Like, is it 1 + 1 = 3?
Sure.
Or is it actually 1 + 1 = negative, 0.5?
Totally.
You can't focus.
Absolutely.
Is wholesale factored in there?
So right now I run paid media, for example, with our wholesale partners. So Nordstrom, for example, if we're doing sponsored product ads, if we're doing any sort of additional presence like a banner or paid social, I would lead that. So I primarily focus on Nordstrom, Bloomingdale's, Zappos, Shopbop. There's another one.
And you're driving that traffic
Macy's.
to Zap to
Yes, we're doing it internally.
Okay, that's interesting. So not to your own site. How do you feel?
No, it would be almost like a sales working budget.
Yeah.
And
you're also responsible for driving sales to your e-com?
Yes.
It's kind of a conflict there in terms of your reporting.
This I think is one of these age-old questions, and you see it across all brands. I mean, I definitely experienced it as well. And I would, first of all, I think that So I would step back and say the answer is it depends on where your consumer is, because we also have Amazon. Like, we're doing marketplaces, we're doing wholesale, so we have presence again via those retailers that I mentioned. We have some retail presence, like actual physical retail presence, owned stores. We
Brick
have
and mortar.
brick and mortar. So we have a store in Aventura here in Florida. We have one in San Diego. Another one in Florida, Sawgrass Mills. And we have our own e-coms. At the end of the day, you want to be where the consumer is. So ideally, channels don't think of it as a competition, but they can find some way to work together synergistically and create this kind of halo effect. We do see, though, for example, that the Nordstrom consumer is not the Shop Melissa consumer. So if you look at the Nordstrom consumer, they tend to be a Nordstrom member, a card holder. Their average age is higher than what we see on our own e-com. So there's got to be overlap, of course, but sometimes you do get different consumer groups as well.
I'm just exhausted thinking about your day and where you choose to focus. So
And a big thing, this is kind of more a periphery for me. It's not what I do, but you mentioned merchandising before. Lots of conversations around how you segment, right? So you have a range of products, and then what products go where. You're not going to have the exact same products across all of your different channels. Amazon's going to get a range, your wholesalers are going to get a range, e-com is going to get a range. There will be some overlap, but there's going to be things on e-com that you can't find via Amazon or via your wholesale. Like, your e-com normally has the absolute largest amount. You can find anything there, and then the other ones are much more segmented. And the big guys do that too.
I think we're just going to kind of roll into this, and I do my pre-record. We're going to do a new thing where we do pre-record, so we have to have the awkward, like, so say hi.
Yeah.
When you talk, you're talking about the .com and segmenting those visitors and having better, maybe a customer experience, because you have the full wide range of products, the wide selection with merchandising. Do you have a preference if someone buys on melissa.com, shopmelissa.com, or if they buy on Amazon? Do you, as a digital marketer, is there a preference, or does your company care? It's something I've been wondering.
I don't think so. I think that there's a benefit in every single channel we forecast. So we want all channels to reach their budget. Of course, ideally, everyone buys on shopmelissa.com because that's the most direct to consumer. However, you need Amazon, you need the big retailers in order to get that mass.
Is there a lot of conversations we're having is, what is your competitive advantage on your site? I notice you're collecting, you're able to collect zero and first party data in your pop-ups right now.
Absolutely.
Asking, I believe are you adult, men's or boys, figure out, for that.
Sure.
Amazon, you mentioned as a channel for yourself. People love Amazon. They love shopping on Amazon because they're customer centric. They create an incredible customer experience. Are you, as you look at Shop Melissa, and you're just launching Ipanema recently, as you look at that experience, capturing first party data, recreating the Amazon experience online so you can have that direct channel, is that something it's moles in the back of your mind as you work in all your different channels? I mean, you mentioned you got your brick and mortar, Amazon, your wholesale through retailers, your direct, managing a lot. Are you learning from different channels and trying to apply that to your own direct channel on site?
Definitely. I think that, one, we're trying to be consumer centric, focus on the consumer. What does the consumer want? Always the best place to go. So as you mentioned, consumers want things fast. They don't want a lot of steps. And I think the reason why we all love Amazon is because Amazon knows what we want. It's incredibly relevant and it's super easy. So we definitely want to take those best practices and replicate them on our site. Some things we can do that it's much more difficult to do on partner site or on Amazon site is to tell our stories. So to present our product the way we want to present it, to give the background that we want to give, to use the imagery and videos that we want to use. Something that when I was looking over the questions, user-generated content is just massive. It's something that a lot of brands are prioritizing for good reason, because consumers believe other consumers more than a brand. So, which is why influencer marketing, and when you see people wearing it on the site, it's so much more interesting. And Amazon hasn't, I mean, Amazon has the reviews and people taking pictures. So that is super helpful. I think that's another thing that's great about Amazon is oftentimes you go to Amazon to read the reviews. You believe more what the people are saying about it than anything else.
As deep in your heart, you're a digital marketer. Your background as paid SEO, and you're driving demand across multiple channels in your role right now. Are you able, or are you currently leveraging UGC to drive traffic in?
We are. So we just did a big influencer campaign around Melissa. We worked with an agency to develop lots of influencer content that they promoted via Instagram, TikTok. So the influencers posted the content, and then we amplified the content vis-a-vis paid media. And we also are using that content on our site. So homepage mastheads, product description pages, we're using that content within emails, and we're also using that content for our own paid media.
Was that like the micro level UGC or more paid influencer?
That was paid. Though we're trying to get more of this micro level. At my previous life, we definitely did that. We had like a block on the PDP where if you wanted to share how you wore it, you could take a picture, use these different tags, and then someone's kind of moderating the content on the back end to make sure you're not nothing that you don't want on your site is going to get through. But that would be they're not influencers. It really is this user generated content. And we do include, so within Facebook, within Meta, there's a UGC within the Commerce Manager. And so it will show you people that are wearing your product, and you can request the rights, or you can request to show that within your Instagram shop. Even if you don't sell like on Meta, it will show up there if someone is on a PDP within the Instagram shop. And we use that as well.
So in terms of like trends you're seeing with UGC, and as you manage these different channels, where on a daily basis, how are you prioritizing your time and your focus from on-site, from in-store, from Amazon? And you mentioned prior to our call, you're mentioning how you're running paid campaigns to Nordstrom's, to Zappos. How do you start your day presently? You just launched a new website. You now have a domain that isn't you, that you're trying to redirect traffic off of. As you sit down, how do you prioritize?
Definitely an art and a science, and it changes day by day. I normally start with numbers. So I normally go in and see how the day before went. I'm highly driven by ROAS. So we see what the net sales were the day before, what did we spend, what were the products, the best sellers, what happened. And then I'll kind of do the rounds and check the campaigns, make sure that everything looks healthy. And from there, it depends a little bit what the priority is. So, for example, we're now migrating we're on Shopify Premium. We were using the out-of-box feeds. Now we're moving to a feed provider. So again, depending on what's going on in the moment, I might focus my time more on one area than another. If we're going to be launching a particular campaign with a retailer, but I tend to start with the numbers, and then I flow into what else needs me.
You
Make sure we're on track.
you caught me. You pricked my ears on two elements there: ROAS
Mm-hmm.
and out of the box. The out of the box with Shopify and other platforms are very. This is kind of the play as larger platform ecosystems are trying to expand their business with their current customer base or expansion and retention in the SaaS worlds, what everyone's talking about right now. And so they'll create new product lines to create stickiness, but oftentimes it's a bare bones. And so as sounds like in your situation might be one where it's great. This basic was good for us, but we need best of breed to fit our business needs. Is that the scenario that happened with your product feed? And we're cutting up there. So with the out of the box with Shopify, it sounds like you were using the product feed.
Yes.
And you have since now found a more robust product feed tool app.
Yes.
And that is what we see as well, and what's common in the market right now in the SaaS space is as retailers grow, they might use a basic function that a larger platform has built, but then they go and add a new technology to their stack.
Sure, exactly.
And is that something that excites you, like you'd be grunging, like, oh, I got to add another tool to my tech stack?
This is a conversation that I'm quite passionate about recently, because since these sites are new, we're starting very fresh. So we're starting very pure and not using a lot of tools. But as you grow, as you become more sophisticated, as scale increases, you need to start adding to be competitive, and again, to take advantage of the tools that are out there to scale your business. And it's really difficult to figure out what's best. I think I just heard there's 11,000 SaaS products out there. They're very hard to compare to each other. So coming from paid media, I want something to help me with paid media. I want to improve my ROAS. I want to be more efficient. I want to be able to have a one-stop shop. And I find that it's very hard to take three and to say these do the exact same thing and go from there. So does it excite me? It definitely does, because there's so much potential out there, but it's also extremely overwhelming and difficult because these products aren't cheap either. You're talking oftentimes thousands of dollars per month. Maybe it's a 6-month, maybe it's a 12-month contract. So you don't want to make the wrong decision when you're going to move forward. Oftentimes you need to choose one and not the other. You can't just have the perfect tech stack. So it's a tough one.
Well, to provide maybe some insights for any listeners, are there any that you might be really excited about?
So we just started working with a AI tool. I'm very excited. AI is the buzzword everywhere. We just went to a meeting with Facebook, Meta. They, of course, were talking about AI, pushing their AI solutions. The Google Marketing Live that happened yesterday, they were talking a lot about AI. So I definitely see a value in AI, and I want to leverage what a human is incapable of doing. So we were at Shop Talk this past March, I believe it was, in Las Vegas. Lots of really great vendors there. And we met with one called Bidnamic, and we're going to work with them. They have a tool that is focused on Google Shopping, text ads, and also pages, like intermediary pages between shopping and your site to reduce bounce rate. And I'm excited about them because they will bid individually on every single SKU. So model, color, and size based on all sorts of different data. So user intent and your cost of goods sold and weather and all sorts of other stuff that for a human being, it's impossible to do that. You literally cannot do that no matter how much time you have. So I'm very excited. We're just onboarding with them. Very excited to see how that goes. Again, because it's something that seems really unique and that I know no matter how many hours of the day I dedicate to Google, there's no way that I could do that myself.
It's automation, really is what it is. It's, how can you automate your daily tasks that
Exactly.
you could do, if half your day wasn't also
if I didn't want to sleep, maybe I could.
And what was the name of that one?
Bidnamic.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's something that I feel like, I know WordStream had a product that did something similar. Those have been around, but with, everything takes time to catch on.
Definitely.
And as AI is becoming more prevalent now with, being with what, with chat and everything that's happening.
Totally.
There's tools out there that it's actually something we can leverage.
Absolutely.
I love what are they doing with the in-between page? Because it's all about, as the whole world of, great, we'll do it all, but you need to build a landing page.
So what they're doing is they're building this, again, in-between page where the goal is to really reduce load time and to be as relevant as possible for the consumer. And the primary objective is to reduce bounced clicks, which would allow you to reduce investment, lost money. So, and I'm a big believer in customer relevancy. I think that the more relevant something is, the better, as it pertains to paid media, as it pertains to everything. So I'm excited to see how that goes as well. But it's like this, again, it's on your page, it's a Shopify page, but it's this in between that, again, will just load really fast and give the consumer exactly what they want. And if that's not what they want, an easy way to find something else.
Yeah, it validates what they saw. With ROAS, I'm excited about this one because you talk about this post-click experience. Are there what on Shop Melissa, are there any strategies you're implementing for that post-click ad experience?
There's a couple of different ones based on where the consumer came from. So, for example, and please let me know if I'm being too media driven, but we just launched a campaign called The Real Jelly, and it was a full funnel campaign. Since Melissa has been in the United States for a while, but we definitely need to drive more awareness around the brand. So we just launched a full funnel marketing campaign, again, upper, mid, lower, and the destination of each of those campaigns, each of those, again, elements within this broader campaign was different. So when we're doing the upper funnel, we're using a different piece of creative. It's a video. It's a little bit more emotional. We're sending them to the homepage. If we're doing more of the interest, we're using an image. It has product, but it also has that emotional experience, sending them to the PLP, the product listing page that has all of the products that are associated with the campaign. And then the lower funnel, where we're really focused on sealing the deal and getting the consumer to buy, that's mostly the imagery is the feed. So we're really leveraging the catalog campaigns and then sending them to the PDPs.
Got it.
The product description
pages. Those visitor segments, are those owned or paid? Are these emails going out or paid?
So that I just explained was paid, and the upper funnel campaigns, it's much broader. It's very much, we might use some interest-based, people that like shoes or people that are looking to shop for summer. And then the interest ones will definitely be interest based. So again, the upper funnel is much more broad. The mid funnel is a bit less broad, but we're still not using first party data. And then when we go into the conversion focused, we normally are. We're normally doing some sort of retargeting.
So as we start getting in from the awareness and the life cycle marketing into conversion, are the elements of capturing an email address to send it back up for list suppression in Google and Facebook, the capturing zero party data, asking them questions, sending that back either to your ESP or to your paid campaigns. Can you talk a little bit about that process that you're managing?
Currently, we aren't doing as much of that as we will in about a year from now. So right now, because the brand isn't really well known, we're very focused on traffic and conversion. I know that so many people right now are primarily focused on retention. And in my previous life, that was a massive, massive focus. Now it's a little bit more traffic and conversion. But at my last position, we would send kind of monthly newsletters, like you mentioned, asking people to tell us more about their interests. We relied heavily on the app as well to understand their behavior, their interests. So just continually trying to get a better picture of who the consumer is. We're also looking at options. So speaking about a tech stack, we don't have a consumer data platform, and we're looking into that and very interested in leveraging others' data to lay on top of our data to better understand our consumer.
And that's the thing. You're not alone in your efforts. Everyone's talking about zero and first party data right now. People might be talking about it, but what's being implemented?
Sure.
And amongst all our other strategies, and with customer acquisition costs increasing, the conversation has finally shifted into the conversion and retention aspects of it. What can I ask you? You mentioned, traffic and conversions are a focus. Apologies, it's allergy season here in Northern California.
I'm from Northern California.
Oh yeah, whereabouts?
From Los Altos.
Okay, yeah. I'm just north of you in Marin.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I saw your UCLA background too. I'm an Aggie,
but I'm not from LA.
So conversions. Can I ask you a
Yes.
very general, broad question?
Absolutely.
When you hear the word conversions, what does conversions mean to you and your daily, and the business of Shop Melissa?
Purchases. Right now, purchases. And one thing, if I can just add about customer data and segmentation and really getting to know these consumers and being as personalized, personalization at scale, is that in order to achieve that and for it to work really well, the scale needs to be pretty massive. For example, currently, I would say that we're not doing a massive amount of segmentation. We might do a little bit. Some of it might be adult versus kid. Some of it might be based on behavior. So if someone hasn't been engaged in the last 6 months or whatnot, but even databases that are really big, millions upon millions upon millions, if you have different categories and you really are like, I only want to target, women who are interested in, it's like the more granular you get, it can kind of over optimize almost and get to a point where it's like the audiences are so small that you might not get that scale that you want.
Well, and how do you manage that? I mean, that's where automation comes in, but still
Exactly.
You're having to manage all those campaigns. You mentioned, segmentation. In our world, our whole push is like, at least build out your top 5, 10 visitor segments. And let's start there. It's kind of that 80-20 rule when you talk about, to you, conversions is purchases. Okay, great. Where is the revenue coming from in those purchases? And let's narrow down those segments and grow those by 10% versus this 1% segment that you don't want to grow that by 10%. It's the big ones.
Absolutely.
And so
I find often that the segments that you think are the big ones are often the opposite, which is what's great about data and being able to leverage data is oftentimes what we think isn't what's actually happening.
So as we look into ROAS, conversion, purchases, that you start your day, you're like, okay, let's look at my sales.
Yes.
And you're looking for trends in there, and then go to your
being very granular. I mean, what I do is I look at gross, net, and compare it to what we forecasted for net. So understanding the big picture, where are we in terms of where we want to be? Then I take the presence that we have, again, very paid media focused in this particular instance. I'm looking at our Google presence, our Meta presence, if we're doing TikTok at the time or Snapchat, seeing how each platform performed. So how is Google, how is Facebook? And then I add all of those up and look at the overall. So what percent of paid media, paid media represents what percentage of net sales and ROAS. And those are kind of the opposite, right? Like the higher the percentage goes, the lower the ROAS is going to go. But that's how I get this pulse check. So just looking at net sales, how we are compared to forecast, overall ROAS, but then I'll also do a pulse check on the different platforms.
And then as you go back and optimize those campaigns coming in, are you looking at which products, the product pages, the landing pages that they're coming in to optimize as well versus language in the ads or visuals in the ads?
Well, and a big piece also taking into consideration when looking at forecasts and looking at results is promotions. So promotions, as much as we love it or hate it, play a pretty big part in online retail. So that is also something to take into consideration, and it's built into the forecast. But when the promotion comes up, conversion goes up. ROAS goes down, conversion goes up. So just making sure to work that into what's going on during the month.
Maybe as we kind of segue out here today, you mentioned, in a year's time, you'd like to be somewhere. If we could pause everything you're working on now, and like you mentioned, you launch a new website, and it's kind of nice to kind of refresh.
Totally.
Get rid of the clutter.
Absolutely.
Where would you like to focus for your business right now over the next 3, 6, 12 months?
So I would say in the next 6, 12 months, we do want to focus on loyalty. We want to focus on creating some sort of loyalty program, still deciding what that looks like and how deeply we want to go. But that would be a focus for us. The other point of focus would be some sort of potentially secondhand marketplace. So Melissa, Ipanema, Grendene has at its DNA sustainability, and their manufacturing facilities in Brazil are very focused on saving water and giving back to the community, and the fact that the material is recyclable. And if you return the shoes, can get them to the factory, they can be recycled and used again. So we're also working on how we can integrate that really important part of the company's DNA and potentially do something where consumers can give them a platform to sell their own, their Melissas or their Ipanemas. So that's very much in its infancy, but some sort of circular option. The loyalty is much more medium term, and the other one's a little bit more long term.
that kind of sparks two thoughts for me. Is one is stories. A story behind a brand, with consumers coming in from paid media, not knowing who this brand is, the ability to communicate that to this new visitor before they bounce, why they should do business with this brand, which in Gen Z is a important component. We've seen, Tom Shoes is one example, the one for one. What pops in my head, and I know you mentioned you lived in Panama, was it 17 years?
17 years.
I actually drove to there from here.
Whoa.
Yeah, in 2000 and I think 2003. No.
Wow.
4 or 5. Panama was unbelievable.
It's beautiful.
You mentioned the second hand use selling, whatever. I feel like the biggest opportunity in market for brands to make an impact is just donating these goods to nations that needs help. I've traveled a lot. You see kids wearing old sports shirts, or even like from the World Series champs that weren't champs. It's like we think, we have our goodwills here and everything, but there's still a second, third, fourth life on some of these products.
Absolutely.
Is that a play at all?
We hadn't considered that, but now that you've brought it up, I think that it's definitely something to bring to the table. Brazil is no stranger to all of Latin America, really, where these brands are extremely big, is no stranger to need. So I wonder if potentially Brazil, I know that Grendene, for example, does a lot of stuff with the local communities where they have the manufacturing. But that is a little bit more around stimulating the economy as opposed to, like you said, a second, third, fourth life. But I think it's extremely interesting. Definitely an opportunity there.
I think every time car tires get replaced, I'm like, are you kidding me? Have you seen the bald tires?
What surprised me about Panama, and especially growing up in California, where I feel as though everything is a little bit new and shiny, is that there are people that fix shoes. There are people there's a lot of fixing of stuff, not just throwing it away and getting something new. And in malls, a lot of there's stores that they literally buy containers of stuff almost sight unseen. Maybe a wholesaler returned it to a brand. Maybe there was something, I don't know, it got lost at sea, showed up, and it wasn't relevant by the time it came. And they'll sell that in Latin America. And it's a total switch. It's normal to go to the store and there's like certain things that aren't available. And I don't know, whereas here, everything's always available all the time. There's so many choices. It's almost overwhelming. So.
Well, the fast fashion market's trying to grapple with that identity crisis.
Absolutely. I mean, it's tough. And I'm glad that people are holding brands more accountable and that they're really trying to, and the brands are responding and trying to make a difference. At the brand where I previously was, sustainability was also, like with Melissa, Ipanema, a huge priority for them. I mean, it really, really was. At the offices, for example, we didn't have any single-use item. No plastic straws, no cups. Everyone had a water bottle. We did beach cleanups. They partnered with Parley, which is a organization that prevents plastic from entering the ocean. And it's really powerful. I mean, when you go to some of these beaches and clean up the plastic, it's crazy. It's crazy the amount of plastic that is there and floating around. So, and then what they would do is, clean it off and then send it to factories send it to the factory and they can actually use that. So
are you, if anyone visits shopmelissa.com, you can see that on their website, there is a lot of conversation around sustainability on the product pages, and you even have your page, your sustainability page.
Yes.
Is that, do you leverage this landing page in your marketing?
So we do. We're working on a platform right now. We're wanting to make sure that we want to make sure that it's relevant for the market that we're in. A lot of, again, Grendene is Brazilian and they're doing a lot of amazing things in Brazil. And we want to ensure that we're mirroring all of those efforts as much as we can in the United States. So we do use it, but we'll most likely use it a bit more once we're doing some more initiatives here. So there's definitely some things in the pipeline that are super interesting that we're going to be doing around sustainability, but we do definitely let people know that these are sustainably made. Again, a lot of elements around the factory. They recycle the water and they use solar energy. All the shoes are vegan. That doesn't really have to do with sustainability, but that it's very...
I laughed when I saw it. I would recommend anyone listening, definitely check out the sustainability page, because this is impressive. All your videos, the factories on here, your solar, this is a fantastic story. So that's really interesting. So
they do a lot. They really do a lot. I mean, listening to me explain it is not doing them justice of what they're actually doing down there in Brazil. So I also encourage everyone to visit and see. It really is a value. It's a company value.
So you heard it here. Next projects are loyalty and the sustainability story. Is that how we?
Yeah, like this. It more like the circular economy. How we can participate in that circular economy, which we see a lot. Exactly. You see a lot of that now, that if we move to fashion, real fashion, that now people are really into buying not necessarily the latest Louis Vuitton bag, but they want to buy a used one.
The real, is that what that store is?
There's real, there's Rebag, there's lots of different ones. So yeah, lots of marketplaces that are really focusing on this kind of second chance.
Circular
luxury
economy,
items get a second chance.
Well, what we need to figure out for the environment as a whole is, how do we get that second, third, fourth use at scale? Because it's not one company that's going to solve that. Maybe that's our 2025 company. Definitely. Well, Mona, thanks for the time talking shop today.
Thank you.
Sounds like you have a lot of work to do. You're busy and you've got a lot of momentum going with the new sites. So congrats there.
Thank you.
Domains, we're talking about shopmelissa.com, and the Ipanema is
shopipanema.com.
Shop Ipanema as well. Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank
for
you,
all our listeners. Thank you, Mona Sutherland, for joining us today. And more coming down the pipe. So please subscribe and listen to The Conversion Show. We'll be here. All right. Thank you.